What is an unbelievable true fact? It is possible for a professional mimic to forget his voice. NASA was sued for trespassing on Mars. In the early 1900s, a wave of molasses rushed through the streets of Boston at 35 miles per hour, killing 21 people. For decades later, locals said on hot summer days they could still smell molasses in the air. When you get a kidney transplant, they usually just leave your original kidneys in your body and put the third kidney in your pelvis. Australia exports sand and camels to the Middle East. The most amazing fact I heard of this week is that Saturn's moon Titan has riverine valleys like Earth, except they are formed by flowing liquid methane. Of course, it also rains methane, but the drops are twice as large as rain on Earth and fall at a fifth of the speed. It also has volcanoes that spew magma, that is water and ammonia, and at 100 C has the same viscosity as molten rock. At least one person has stayed in space, ice, since November 2000, making October 31st the last date all of humanity was on the Earth together. The greater honey guide is a bird that drops its eggs into other birds' nests. When born, the chick has 2 teeth at the end of its beak. It then uses that beak to destroy the other eggs/kill the other birds in the nest. So the mama bird returns to a war zone nest and basically has to raise the chick that slaughtered its babies. It loses the teeth like 2 days after being born. Birds are savage. Yoda and Miss Piggy were both voiced by the same person. There is more fresh water contained in Loch Ness than in all rivers and lakes in England and Wales combined. Each cell has about 2 meters of DNA and you have about 100 trillion cells in your body. If you took all the DNA in your body, uncoiled it, and lined it up, it would reach the sun and back roughly 300 times. Martin and Gary Kemp, from Spandia Ballet. Gary was born with only 1 kidney. He developed a condition which caused his kidney to fail. His younger brother Martin agreed to be a donor, and it turned out on the scan that Martin had been born with 3 kidneys. If you are 25 years old, apx 1/3 of all the humans that were alive at your birth have died. The Stegosaurus was as old to the Tyrannosaurus as the T-Rex is to us. Dinosaurs lived for a long time. Humans have such an aggressive and hormonal society that the females often grow pseudopene. That asphalt, bitumen, is actually in a constant liquid state, so you are driving on a surface that has a viscosity level 1000x more than that of honey. Trees have such intricate root systems that a tree low on one particular type of nutrient will acquire some from his neighbors and make up for it later. This is especially prevalent during the winter months when some trees don't have leaves and so need extra help from their evergreen friends. A day on Mercury is longer than a year on Mercury. The time it takes to see a full cycle of sunrises is 176 Earth days. The time it takes to orbit the sun is about half that. Vending machines kill more people than sharks a year. Once when I was a kid I farted and the TV turned off. There used to be a flying reptile that was as tall as a giraffe. Penguins do have knees. It rains diamonds on Jupiter and Saturn. Also, Mars is inhabited by robots. Cleopatra lived closer to the creation of the iPhone than she did to the building of the Great Pyramid. About 40,000 Americans are injured by toilets each year. The Japanese performed surgical experiments on live humans with no painkillers as well as intentionally spreading disease and famine, and the US gave them a free pass in exchange of gaining data on these experiments before the Russians. Dark part of history that we chose to ignore unfortunately. Source: Unit 731. One of the youngest person diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease was 31 years old and pregnant. She died less than 2 years after giving birth. And she is not the youngest case in the world. You can find cases of people getting diagnosed in their mid-late 20s. Very rare, but it happens. Oldest woman to have gotten pregnant naturally and delivered was 59 years old. She got pregnant by surprise thinking she might have cancer. The youngest one was 5 years old. Lego people live in houses made of their own skin. Platypuses produce milk and eggs. Therefore a portable source of omelets. A woman once had her intestines ripped out of her when she took a crap in her cabin during a cruise. Cruise ships often employ powerful vacuums to pull waste through their sewage systems, and unfortunately for her being a bigger gal, when she sat down and flushed, she created a seal that sucked her intestines out of her. Sacred sheep. The ancient Sumerians, who are thought to have developed the first form of writing, cuneiform script, immortalized sheep in the form of gods in their religion. Egyptians believed that sheep were sacred. They even had them mummified when they died, just like humans. If you made $8,000 every hour since the birth of Jesus Christ, you still wouldn't have accumulated Jeff Bezos's net worth, $145.6 billion. If you live in Montana, switching from electric heat to a rocket mass heater will reduce your carbon footprint more than parking 7 cars. Olivia de Havilland, who starred as an adult in Gone with the Wind in 1939, is still alive. Every time you shuffle a deck of cards, chances are you have put them in an order never seen in the history of the universe. Those fluffy cumulus clouds you see floating in the sky, they weigh about 1.1 million pounds each. Children of identical twins are genetically siblings, not cousins. Your future self is talking crap about you right now. In order for you to smell something, we have to breathe in particles of the source. So when you smell crap, the first thing to form on the mass of cells that will become a human is the arsehole. Kangaroos have 3 vags. This is true, and I know it's weird. Dolphins legitimately like to get high off of pufferfish. They can poke the fish around until it starts releasing a mild toxin. And when dolphins get the toxin in their system, it is very similar to when people get high. Jacksonville, FL is farther west than all of South America. Copied from another post, but it fits. Also, this is going to be quite a long one. TL/DR. Humanity's history with radiation and nuclear reactions is quite disturbing. In the late 1800s, X-rays had recently been discovered. It was soon discovered after that, if you hold an X-ray tube to your eye, you see a fireworks effect, unbeknownst to them. This was caused by X-rays hitting and ionizing electrons in the molecules in your eyes. When the electrons went back to their lower energy state, energy would be released in the form of light, causing the effect. This effect, known as the photoelectric effect, wouldn't be officially discovered until the early 20th century by Albert Einstein. This little trick was seen as harmless and very entertaining, and thus became a common party trick at wealthier households. In the 1920s, radium had recently been discovered, and it was seen similarly to how titanium is seen now. People back then didn't know that radiation was harmful. In fact, many thought it was healthy. Just like today, many radium branded products back then quite fortunately contained no such radium. Such examples include radium toothpaste, radium condoms, radium shoe polish, and radium starch. Some unfortunately did. Some were in practicum harmless, such as watches that had radium coated paint that glowed in the dark. The production of these, however, didn't last too long, as the women who painted these watches would lick the brush to get them to a fine point. This actually was the case that led to workers being able to sue for unsafe or abusive working environments. Look up Radium Girls. Other companies had products that were all in all quite disturbing. One such company thought it would be a good idea to make a little pouch for men to store a fair amount of radium right up against their reproductive organs. This product was called the Radioendocrinator. Then there were energy drinks that were essentially irritated water. This water contained substantial amounts of radium and thorium, and was aptly called Raditha. This was the product that actually put a stop to radium being used in bullcrap medical products. Eben Byers, a rich and eccentric industrialist, drank 3 bottles of this stuff daily. When he died, the headline on the Wall Street Journal was "The radium water worked fine until his jaw came off." Nice to know that blatant consumerism isn't exclusively a product of the 21st century. Thorium caused quite a scare for America during WW2. American intelligence procured information that Nazi Germany was building a huge stockpile of thorium. This freaked us out, because we figured that they had discovered that thorium was needed to make an atomic bomb, and that this huge thorium grab meant they were pretty far along in the process of making one. In reality, the Nazis made pitifully little progress towards making the bomb. They grabbed all this thorium because they were planning on making a brand of thoriated toothpaste and hoped it would be as popular as radium toothpaste. Thankfully it's no longer made. The first 2 atomic bombs had about 100 pounds of weapons-grade uranium/plutonium in them. However, when they went off, the only amount that actually underwent fission was about the size of a paperclip. The rest was vaporized by the resulting explosion. Due to the ratio of material to undergo fission to the amount that was vaporized, the bombs had an efficiency of about 1%. Today's nuclear weapons have efficiencies in the 50-60% range. When the 2 atomic bombs went off over Japan, the blasts spread small amounts of radiation all over the world. This effect ended up slightly irradiating all of Earth's steel. It's not enough to cause harm, but enough to be picked up by a Geiger counter. Because of this, Geiger counters have to be made with steel that was on the German U-boats that were submerged at the time of the blasts. The reason that the radiation is still affecting steel today is that the radiation from the blasts was spewed into the atmosphere, and since the process to make steel requires a lot of air, the isotopes, mainly carbon-14, in the atmosphere get into the steel. The most powerful nuclear bomb ever made, the Tsar bomb made by the Soviet Union, had a destructive force of 53 megatons, meaning it had the explosive force equivalent to 53 million tons of TNT. Theoretically, the bomb actually could have had twice the power if they had included a 238U tamper, which would reflect neutrons from the core back into the core, increasing the compression of the plutonium charge. This would also cause the uranium atoms to split, adding an element of nuclear fission to the bomb. When the Soviet Union tested this bomb, they did so on Seveny Island, hundreds of miles away from the nearest town. They figured it would be far enough so that nobody would be affected by the blast. When the bomb went off, there was property damage and shattered windows in as far away as Copenhagen, Denmark. Thousands of miles away, the shockwave from the blast was recorded going around the entire Earth 9 times. In the song Rap God, the rap artist Eminem breaks the world record for words per second at 97 words in 6.4 seconds. If he spoke for an entire minute he would speak 690 words. Wilbur and Orville Wright flew for the first time in history on December 17, 1903, and only 66 years later, in 1969, man walked on the moon. Camels evolved in the Americas and migrated opposite humans across the land bridge. NASA fixes Mars lander by telling it to hit itself with a shovel. The brain named itself. Kermit the Frog has exactly 11 triangles around his neck. Humans don't fart. Hard-working bacteria in our colon do the farting, and we selfishly take credit for it. Human butthole can stretch up to 8 inches. Every female child is already born with the eggs she used to have children. It's theoretically possible to travel faster than light without traveling faster than light. If you take all the veins from your body and lay them out one after each other, you die. There are more planes in the sea than boats in the sky. The age of the universe depends on where you are, because of the way gravity affects time. If you are in a low density part of the universe is older than if you are in a high density part. The 13.8 billion year figure astronomers have deduced is the age of the universe locally. I know this is really hard to believe, but all facts are true. In the 1960s Chrysler had a missile division, and Ford had spy planes that they would occasionally use to spy on other automakers, get a peek of what their NASCAR offerings were. If you wound spider silk into a rope as thick as a pencil, it would be strong enough to hold a private jet in place. A neutron star is so dense that a matchbox-sized portion of one would weigh 3 billion tons. There's always a little bit of space between you and whatever you touch, no matter how small that space may be. 99.99999999999% of all matter is just empty space. I'm essential. I still don't believe it. There are underwater wires connecting countries for internet. It is not satellite based, just a few huge fiber cords from one continent to another. Platypus are mammals that have beaks and lay eggs, the only ones. They also don't have nipples, but rather secrete milk out of their belly from sweat type glands. I sometimes forget they are real, and not some type of Pokemon. Every planet in our solar system fits between the Earth and the Moon. More people have been on the Moon than people have won Takeshi's Castle. If you earned $5,000 a day, every single day, since Columbus first sailed to the Americas to now, you still wouldn't have earned $1 billion. That's how much $1 billion is. Horses are literally the worst suited animals for survival sometimes. They are very negatively affected by black walnuts. Even standing in a pile of the shavings for just an hour will start hurting them. As time goes on, they will develop very painful and dangerous laminitis, which will affect them for the rest of their lives and could kill them. If you have a stall with 20 pounds of pine shavings in it, and you add a single handful of black walnut shavings, the horse will still be affected. And if they have foundus/laminitis, you cannot feed them the most nutritious hay, alfalfa, because eating that hay will make their laminitis worse. They can eat too fast and get a ball of feed stuck in their throat that you have to massage unstuck, or use a tube down their nose to unblock. They cannot puke. If they get colic and you can't get them to fart, basically, their stomach pops. They're an extremely strong, durable animal. But if they bonk a spot on the top of their head with just a little too much force, they die instantly, or it fricks their spinal cord up, and they are paralyzed and have to be put down. They can carry 150 pounds on their back or more in a cart. But if they bonk their neck on, say, a tree limb a bit too hard, they can break their spine. Sometimes horses just search for ways to end itself. I had a horse who got a minor injury, recovered, and then 4 months later went to sleep and died. The vet said he was perfectly healthy and had no reason to die. So he thinks the horse just decided, I'm gonna go die in my sleep, and just kinda forced it to happen. Abraham Lincoln was a highly accomplished wrestler and is in the WWE Hall of Fame and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He lost only 1 match out of 300. Carrots do not improve your eyesight. Everything we have translated from the ancient Assyrians is now available to read for free online, because the ancient aliens people kept lying about what was in there. That the dashes between lanes on roads and highways are 10 feet long. If you water water, it grows. Snipers are trained to shoot between their 2 pulses to avoid movement caused by the pulse. The boiling point of water you guys all learned about in elementary/high school is only the boiling point at sea level. It is different on a mountain. Boiling points change due to air pressure. That everyone has at least one person that cares about them. There are more ways to arrange a deck of standard playing cards than stars in the observable universe. Lightning McQueen's real name in Montgomery. You don't get arthritis and osteoporosis from cracking bones. During World War II, there was a man named Yang Kang-jang who independently fought for the Japanese, Soviets, and Nazi Germans. Pepsi once owned the 6th largest navy, even if just temporarily. You can die in a plane crash whilst staying in a hotel. That you don't need to put true in front of fact, as a fact is a true statement. I'm not really a doctor. Snakes have 2 penes. I believe it is called a hemipene. When Caesar and Cleopatra were gazing upon the pyramids, they were already more ancient to them than Cleopatra and Caesar are to us now. The University of Oxford is older than the Aztec Empire. The Great Emu War of 1932. People of Australia declared a war on emus and lost. Andrew Jackson was gifted a block of cheese 4 feet in diameter, 2 feet thick, and weighing 1400 ibs. Average ding dong size is 5.5 inches. So for every super dong you see in those Me Time videos, there must be a mini dong floating around in space. The difference between $1 million and $1 billion is approximately $1 billion. 80% of the facts in this thread are false. I'm sure there's a lot out there, but I just learned that Bangladesh has a larger population than Russia. Elephants can actually hear with their feet. Gwen Stefani is older than Ted Cruz. There is at least one ostrich farm in Norway. That Roundup weed killer that causes cancer, the one you always see on local TV, created by the same guys as Agent Orange. Some people's vital organs are in reverse position to everyone else's. It's called situs inversus. If they get opened up for surgery, It looks like a mirror image of what you'd expect to find. You're more likely to be beaten to death than killed by a firearm. We're either alone in the universe, or we're not. Either possibility is absolutely frightening. MK Ultra, US government were doing fricked up tests on their own citizens. Scotland's national animal is the unicorn. Since Pluto was discovered, it has yet to go around the sun. Alcohol does not cure nor warms you. Well, if you don't believe it, then you don't think it's true, and if you do believe it, then it's not unbelievable. No matter the lengths we go to, all will be one with Nurgle in the end. There are more nipples than people in the world. 1. Fingerprints can be the same and that forensic crap doesn't work. 2. You can't get arthritis from cracking your knuckles. And 3. If you fall to death you'll bounce. Iceland imports ice. Because of economies of scale, it's cheaper to produce ice in a factory with a large output in somewhere like America and then ship it to Iceland to sell in bags in supermarkets and bars. It's technically legal to eat someone under the right circumstances. For centuries, diabetes was tested by having the doctor taste the urine of the patient. If the urine was sweet, it would suggest that the patient was diabetic.